Monique Chapman Show, where self-help connects with spirituality. Join our supportive community of forward-thinking experts sharing tools so that you can live a better life. Welcome, and I am so glad you joined me today. Today we are speaking with Dianne Bischoff James, and she is a life reboot specialist. So if you're feeling stuck, you need some changes in your life, this is the call and for you to call in on. This is the show for you to listen to and set your life in a positive direction. Now, my guest this hour, Dianne Bischoff James, is a life reboot specialist and a dynamic motivational speaker who encourages audiences to create a reality that is prosperous, deliberate, and meaningful. She is the author of the award-winning book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now, a novel that encourages others to recognize their own personal power and potential. And as well, she is a SAG actor, empowerment coach, marketing consultant, and founder of is that life or liveyoureverything.com? I'll have to clarify that with her. A sanctuary for life-enhancing transformation. Hi, Dianne. Dianne, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah.
Hi. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. It's Mercury retrograde, girl, and things happen. Give me your website again because I think I said it wrong. So what is your website?
It's called liveyoureverything.com.
Okay, and I did. I put life. So it's liveyoureverything.com, folks. And the book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now, is an excellent book. If you're stuck, especially if you're middle-aged or even, younger aged, but if you're stuck and you're looking to change your life and you are scattered, you can't figure out where to begin, this is an excellent book for you because it will walk you through in very much storybook style life lessons. And this woman has had a lot of life lessons that we're going to delve into a little bit, but she really gives some good information. So, Dianne, thank you so much for writing this book. And what prompted you to put out a book of this magnitude?
Well, Monique, I actually never really expected to write a book. I had just a synchronistic event when I was 38. I thought I had it all. I had a business that was very successful. I had acquired all of the stuff, that American dream stuff that everybody says get the convertible, have the real expensive shoes, the Prada bag, all the materialistic goods that we were supposed to go after, and I did it. I did it with gusto, and I had like a mini mansion across from the lake, and I had a marriage, the long-term marriage, and 3 kids. And on my 38th, the week of my 38th birthday, I'd had 2 people synchronistically say to me, you really should go see this woman. Her name is Sonia Choquette. And back then, because this was, over 10 years ago, she was still emerging. Right now she's an internationally known psychic healer. And at the time that, when I first heard of her name, I didn't really know who she was. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. 2 people in the same week are telling me to go see a psychic. And so I thought, okay, it was really more for fun. I always loved metaphysics, but I hadn't seen that many psychic healers at the time. So I thought I'd just go and check it out. And I really thought she was going to say, oh, my life was perfect. I was on this, tremendous course towards success, and I thought she was going to say, oh, just keep going, you've got it made. And so I sat in her office. She actually did it in her home at the time. And for 1 hour, she just undressed me. She said, wrong career. She said wrong partner, that we had a fraternal marriage. She said I was supposed to be an actor, an author, a teacher, a healer, and everything about life was wrong. And I just kind of sat there at first staring at her, and then kind of the impact started to hit me. I really felt like I was going to throw up. And I started digging my hands into her. It was too much. I mean, it was total overwhelm. And then half I wanted to go across and start grabbing her at the neck and start shaking her and saying, "Who are you?" And how dare you say this kind, you want to kill the messenger, right? I'm like, who are you? Why, how could you say this stuff about me? And I didn't say much. I really did not say much or participate much in this bashing. I kind of sat there, and she then, right before she left, she's like, okay, well, you have to hurry up and grab at the real brass ring, or pretty soon it's going to be too late. And I was able to squeak out, like, too late for what? What's going to happen to me? And she said, well, you're here to find your heart, and you're completely off track on that. She goes, but if you don't hurry up and grab at this real brass ring, you're going to have to come back and do this entire life all over again. And then she kind of like spun out and then took off. And so I didn't know what to do. It's as if somebody had taken every one of my dirty secrets, piled them up, just swung at them, threw them across the room, splattered them on the wall, and then said, see ya. And so, it was really a tough encounter. And she didn't call me out on this at the time because she's very polite. I mean, she's tough. She's tough in the way she speaks and the way that there's just holds nothing back. But she was polite enough not to tell me this one. But I was 190 pounds at the time. So clearly I was having signs and symptoms that things were not working and things were not in sync and were not harmonious and from, the true core, from the heart. But, she also said, I'm going to tell you something that no one else will call out to you. She said, you're depressed. You're clinically and chronically depressed. And she said, sorry, I always want to take on a voice when I have this, like, snappy little voice. She said, you're clinically and chronically depressed, and I'll tell you what. She said, you better just hurry up, and she said, nothing about your life is your own. She said, you're living your father's life and your mother's life, and she said, and nothing about what you're doing is authentic or real. And then she kind of took off. And it was hard to hear that because, it's one thing if you go to a reader or you go to somebody who says, oh, you'd be really, you should change jobs or maybe you should move to Wisconsin or get a farm or whatever the one specific thing they said. But she basically said my entire life was a sham. So that's how my whole story started. And she's like, if you have these stories. She goes, people are going to love your stories, and they're going to benefit from your stories. And honestly, Monique, at the time, I was just staring at her. I didn't know what she was talking about. I mean, my stories were not that interesting back then. I was just working 24/7. What's so interesting about that? I was the helicopter parent and hovering around the kids, and, I volunteered, and I was a coach and doing all these things. But I didn't have real juicy stories. I didn't really know how people were going to benefit from all this, but the minute I had that encounter, it shook the core. It was my earthquake, complete wake-up call, and from that moment on, my entire life changed. And so that's kind of how the whole thing started.
Okay. Well, in your book, you mentioned that you spent a considerable amount of time in your car right after that reading, kind of like letting out your frustrations. But so instead of taking that reading as a negative and like, okay, this woman doesn't know what she's talking about because everything's fine, although you know that it wasn't, how did you decide to take that information and utilize it to your greatest good?
Well, the first thing I did was cry. But the funny thing is, I was crying because I think whenever, and I help, I do a lot of private consultation, and when people cry now, I'm happy because tears mean that you've hit the core. Tears mean that this is real. You've touched on something that is your heart. You've touched on something that's connected with your highest and greatest good. You may not be doing what was supposed to be there, but it was 100% authentic for me. So I think at the time I didn't know that tears were actually a sign of connection. But once I got over the fact that it was in post-traumatic shock a little bit, I had a little bit of the syndrome where I had to wipe the tears off and then go to a business meeting and then figure out what to do with this information. So it took me an incredibly long time. It took the whole journey, took over 10 years, and the book accounts for those 10 years. The first thing I did, she said, I'm going to give you some books to read. and these are the books, and you've got to sit down and read them, and this will kind of kick you, jumpstart you. And so I didn't tell her, but I'd already read thousands of metaphysical books because I've always loved the topic of psychology and philosophy and things. So the books that she gave me I did. I said, yes, ma'am, and I went off and I bought every one of the books and I read every single one of them, and she said, study these different people. And at the time, she kind of mentioned Esther and Jerry Hicks, and now they are, they're hugely well known. Back then, they were tooling around in a Winnebago. They were going to hotels, and they were kind of like doing a mini tour around the country, pulling their car behind them because they weren't well known, but they had 3 little pamphlets out. It was the Law of Attraction, Law of Deliberate Creation, and they had the Law of Mutual Attraction. And those were their 3 little tiny pamphlets. They weren't even books. And I sat in this ballroom because she said, go check out all these things. So I did. I followed her instructions, and I saw Esther Hicks, who's with Abraham Hicks, and she was standing up there on this little stage in a Marriott in this little room, in this little tiny little elevated platform, speaking with an Old English accent, talking about the fundamentals of how our thinking is backwards. And I didn't know why she was speaking in an Old English accent. I thought that was just weird, but I just kind of went with it, and I was looking at, is anybody else picking this is weird? But, people were just really intent, and I started listening, and I started getting that hum, like, inside of me. It was the first time someone had actually said some basic core messages about, and I'm going to call it stinking thinking.
Okay.
That what you think about, you are actually bringing about. And I realized that was kind of a home run for me. I really did not know how to think towards attraction, think about what I wanted, think even about anything good. So I had to start at the very, very, very beginning of retraining what I call mind your mind. I had to go back and look at how many, I was trained in disaster talk. My parents are, my dad is ex-military and my mom's parents were straight over, Irish immigrants. And so they had learned that everything's kind of dangerous and scary and, eat everything on your plate or somebody in another country is going to starve.
Yes. Yes.
And so I ate everything. Yeah. Everything I could possibly see I ate, And then we'd learn that, don't let the neighbors hear you. Don't let the neighbors see what you're doing, which I never understood ever. And so we went out to play. We had to be quiet. And I could never figure out why we had to be quiet or what the neighbors would think or care, or why would they care about us? We were kids,
Right.
So I had a lot of really faulty programming from the beginning, from early childhood, as most of us do, many of us do. And so I had to really go in and look at what were the messages, what could I do to start from that basic kind of a fundamental level, kind of clean up my mind, and I started there. And that was the first thing I did that really was amazing. And I found that I had so many negative, dark thoughts. Honestly, Monique, I started putting a rubber band around my wrist, and I snapped it, and
Ooh,
I bruised myself. I bruised myself because I couldn't think of anything good. I mean, I was just used to, when you go out, the person's not going to accept my proposal, or this is bad thing's going to happen, or the kids are, I hope the kids are doing okay today. I mean, I was so worried and had kind of anxiety-ridden, and just doing this was eternal. So I had to. My first wake-up call was a rubber band around the wrist, and that was the first thing that really helped me get that awareness up to a level where I had to go, okay, it's time to really think about that. And that's why in the book there's 14 rules, and it's what changed my life. It's changed the life of people I'm able to work with, and when I tour over the country, we're able to share some of these rules. And the first one is, first of all, the universe is all good. It's not this dark, horrible place. It's not that we can't be supported. It's not that we're never going to get love, or all of the essence of lack that I was born with. But it is all good. And the second one, of course, is what you think about, you bring about. So every thought, every word, every deed, everything that you're doing is going to come back. And so just how do you start? What's the first to do on, take that wheel and kind of start spinning it in the opposite direction? And that was to really mind my mind. So that was the very first step I took.
Okay. Well, how does one get past the point of, the negative, the stinking thinking, so to speak, when they have been programmed forever, like your parents programmed you, my parents programmed me, but there seems to be a generation now, the younger baby boomers especially, where they are not able to flip that script, so to speak. So they might verbally say, oh, I am absolutely fabulous, and inside that internal tape that's running is saying, yeah, you're nothing but a liar. So how do you get past projecting one thing, but the tape inside is truly saying something else?
And thank you. That is a fabulous, fabulous question. What I did, and I had negative messages. I always call it like this. You have a steamer trunk, or you can have the roller bag, or you have the one that goes under the plane, or you have the carry-on. And mine was the steamer trunk. Mine was so big and so dark that I was having those thoughts that people shouldn't have. Why am I here? I'm not. I don't want to stay here. I mean, the dark. I wasn't going to take steps to hurt myself, but I was having those thoughts. And that's one of the things that I love to share is that at certain points in our life when it gets rough, those thoughts come in. I don't want to be here. This place it's never going to get any better. I'm never going to find love. My heart is just this tiny little black pea, and no one's ever going to get it open, and it's never going to be this beating, beautiful, red, juicy thing that's supposed to be inside me. Or love is a pipe dream, which was mine. I was stuck on one. I thought the whole love, what is that? Someone's going to love me? Someone's going to care for me? I'm going to love someone back? I really didn't know what that meant. It was a foreign concept. I could say the words, but that was a complete foreign concept. So she told me to march myself off, and this was for the big guns, to this place called Hoffman Institute. And they're in California.
Yeah, up the street
probably
from me.
Over 100. Yeah, it's really close to you. But what most people don't know is like 100,000 people have gone to this program. But you never. It's not. You don't ever have to promote it. It's not doesn't have that like weird cult like kind of thing where people have to keep going back. You only interact with them as you choose, or if you ever want to. And so I went for a week, and they got to the core issues. Every negative message, because we're imprinted when up to 12, according to Piaget. And people know this. Everybody who's been in child development knows that the messages that come in, because we have concrete operation as children between about 8 and about 12, and every message is coming in, and even earlier, so really from maybe early on, let's say even going back 1 or 2, up to 12, we cannot filter that information. We don't have the ability to do it. It's not until you become like 12, 13, 14 that you can put in your abstract thinking hat and say, oh, if someone said, you're fat. At the time, I couldn't filter that out. I get as I'm unlovable, ugly, never going to be attractive. I mean, so you take it in and you suck it into the core of who you are. And so when you have a lot of messages like that, or that you're a bad girl, or that you're stupid, or those really horrible things that somehow we picked up, maybe somebody said, someone in a leadership role growing up, could be parents, could be a teacher, could just be, an older sibling, and it becomes part of what we, as I'm sure you know, we make sure that that's real. So we bring in the situation in our lives to prove to yourself that exactly what you said, those horrible messages about yourself, come true. So if you're in a relationship that is very unfulfilling, and I was, we've been married, we were married for 16 years, and just didn't have the heart connection. Good people. We were good people. We weren't doing any of the bad stuff. We weren't cheating. We weren't really even being verbally abusive or anything. We just never connected on a heart level. But that's because I think in my core belief was that I was ugly and I was unlovable. And so I brought in somebody where I felt he didn't mean to, and he's not a bad guy, but I just made sure that relationship reinforced those messages every day. And so when going to a place like Hoffman, you go through 7 days. It's Gestalt. It's everything you can think of they use maybe, 20 of the best techniques all put together in this unique program. And you come out like a brand new spanking baby soul. So all the negative programming gets to actually stop. And when I finished, it was as if somebody turned the light on. It was, oh my God, here's the beautiful world, and people are pretty, and look at their eyes, and oh my goodness, I can see the light, and it was kind of like the clouds passed, and it allowed me to rebuild from there. Had I not done that, because of I was very, very sensitive and more of emotional stuff growing up, not so much physical abuse, but a lot of emotional lack of support, let's say, in a tough environment, and we moved every couple of years, so I had a lot of that stuff going on. For me, that I needed the big guns. So that's, if you need there are programs out there that can help people, that can dig deep and get rid of it, like the onion, you get rid of, like, let's say at least 7 or 8 of the layers. Maybe not all, maybe not 10, but it's hard in 7 days to get rid of everything that's ever happened to you, but especially when you're
a good start.
40. But 7 or 8 is pretty good, and then you can keep working on it in the future. But that's why our journey is about life lessons. But then there's other programs that I have found. There are local programs. There are techniques that I like to use, the ones that are more simple, and these are the ones. And this is a really simple one. I'll throw it out.
Okay.
I like to, before I go to bed, sometimes if I get hung up on something and I get all triggered and something has me extremely fired up, and for the most part I don't get fired up a whole lot, but if I do, I'll say before I go to bed, and you're kind of in that twilight area, I'll say, show me why I'm having such a really strong reaction to this, or show me why. Here's one example. I couldn't finish the book. I've been writing this thing for 10 years because Sonia said write a book, and she's like, don't come back and see me till you write that book. And
okay.
She did, and I did, and I was, I took this very seriously.
You didn't go back and see her, did you?
Not until I wrote the book, and so, but I was stuck. I couldn't finish, Monique, and I was like, what is my problem? I literally said to myself, what is your problem? Why won't you finish? And I realized I kind of threw that out there before I went to bed. I said, show me, asking for the world, the helpers on the other side, our team of spiritual beings who are always there to help us. And I said, show me why I can't finish this. And when I woke up in the morning, I had a cognition, I had an idea, I had a thought that said, terrified of the potential rejection, as much of the potential success, let's say, as the potential failure. And I was sitting right in the middle between, well, if it succeeds, oh my God, what will I do? I have 3 kids. How am I going to do this? How will I go on tour? And then I thought, if it fails, that means everything about what I have lived and wrote is a giant mess. And so with that, for me, I was so stuck between what if I fail, I lose, and if I win, I lose. I know that sounds crazy, but that's where I was stuck. But when that idea came in, I thought, okay, now that's just nuts. I really was able to kind of flip it around and say, I made the goal very, very, very simple. I said, if one person either enjoys it or finds just a little bit of help from these juicy stories about dealing with addiction and dealing with some death and dealing with complete change and losing right now I think it's like 60 pounds or whatever, all these different shifts that I went through, if one person gets any help from that at all, then I decided that made it a victory.
That's well worth it.
So I made the criteria super, super, super simple so that it flipped off that switch, and then I finished literally 7 days later and shipped it out. And I just so a lot of times it's about awareness. It's a little bit about getting super stuck. Usually is in, as I'm sure you know, it's all like honeycombed in a life lesson about dealing with rejection or dealing with your own truth or realizing that love is real, love is beautiful, being loved by in a relationship, being loved by, for yourself, to yourself, with yourself. All of those things are real. I didn't know any of that was real until I went through this journey. So that's the long and the short answer of it is part awareness, part knowing when to reach out for help, part knowing when, if you can't do it yourself, there are a lot of places actually that offer great techniques, because I think we have that blind spot. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know you, but it's easy to see it in somebody else because we could be objective and be great with our observational tools, but when it comes to self, it's just like driving the car. I don't know who's totally back to the right and who's totally back to the left. So those blind spots is where I think we're supposed to help each other. I mean, we're to grow as a conscious community. So
exactly.
So that's
okay.
Those are some of the ideas.
Folks, if you're in Northern California, the Hoffman Institute is located in Napa, California. I haven't been there, but, I think it's worth checking out, especially based on the information that Dianne has shared with us. And we are speaking with Dianne Bischoff James. She is the author of The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. We are taking questions from you. The phone lines are open. Give us a call at 914-205-5641. Again, that's 914-205-5641. And you can ask Dianne a question about, life change, because I know there's people out there listening that are stuck right now. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with being stuck. It's just all a matter of saying, okay, I'm stuck, I need help, and what's the next step, and not being so resistant to the information that you receive. Dianne, how often have you worked with people and everything that you suggest to them or tell them, it's like, no, and you're looking at them like, really?
Well, it's funny because I think I find that very often what happens is that people may say no, but especially because if you're working with another person, we're like mirrors. So the no actually turns into I can see it because body changes, light changes their eyes. Other people have when you touch on truth. Not only can we feel it within ourselves, we can often have that confirmation. And my confirmation typically, and everyone's different, I don't know, Monique, if you get this, but I get like the chills up and down, mostly my legs. So when I'm touching on a truth, either for myself or for others, I get this like tingly thing. I know everyone has a different experience of how spirit connects with us, but when I hit core truth, I literally feel it. And a lot of times people's breathing changes. So even though they may say no, and this is what I love. I say, how's your relationship? And people say, it's fine. I'm like, oh, there's that word. Fine equals messed up usually because when people say fine, it means they're tolerating something for now and they'll deal with it later. Very often that's how that translates. And so when they, so it's in the language, it's in the body language, it's in the feelings of, within our cellular level. And so I think the core truth, we all know. We know when it's, and here's just a great question that I like to ask. And this is, I'm just going to, touch on the one where, whether it be a relationship with yourself, let's start with that. This is just a great question that you can ask yourself. What would self-love look like today? And what I find is when I ask people that question, they their eyes open up like saucers. They sit back. You hit them with a truck. And they're like, some people say, I don't know. I don't have any idea what self-love would look like. And the truth is that we're supposed to actually function from that actual space of self-love every day. And, what would self-love look like today? And for some people, they start to just spout out things like, I would take a day off. I would honor myself and go, sit in the tub. I would run out and get, some time by the lake or by the beach or take the walk with my dog or whatever they want to do, or start to get back into the things that they really enjoy, which, of course, is the passion area. And they start to talk, but their passions usually just fly forward, because that's how we're supposed to be living, from the heart center, from purpose, and then also from complete and utter authenticity, which usually means the truth. Truth about self, truth about your relationships, and getting to all those truths is where I think most of us get stuck. So that's one thing. Start to really inquire within yourself about, what would, and here's just another really simple one. What would a heartfelt relationship look like? Well, I had to.
That's a hard one to answer. Huh?
It is, I think, when we're locked, but I think when we have a little taste of that experience again, of even if it's a girlfriend relationship or just a really close friendship, I found I had to ask myself, as over the 10 years, a lot of people, I think we all find we collected a group of people that may or may not be part of our team. And when you ask yourself, what would a team member who's on my team, again, it's such a beautiful question, because most people can come up with one hand of people. Now, if you're on two hands, good for you. If you can do 10 who are really on your team, we know the ones who are our relationships, who are 100% our court, who are there for us, who are the friends who are always going to be saying, you go, girl, you've got it. I always believed in you. The people who are 100% on your team. And this goes even to, I love to ask this question to my kids. I love to ask it to my fiance. I'll say, okay, come on, who's on your team? And people will just be able to honestly spit that answer out. And it's not many people. And it's not always mom and dad. Sometimes it's neither. Sometimes it's your kids. You'll say, this person's on, I know this one's always been always on my team and is in my camp and is right there. Like my daughter is the reason I finished this work, is because she said, Mom, you need to finish. You can do this. It's going to be great. Now, it's basically shut up and start typing. And then she's like, she gives me a little bit of the tough love, and then she walks out the door, and I dedicated the piece to her, because if it wasn't for her, who kept saying, would you stop with the yak? And she was less yak and more writing. And I'm like, oh, sorry. And I go back and I start, because you have that one person who's kind of keeping you on track, but in a loving way. And so those are some of the real authentic questions that I think if we really asked ourselves, there might be fewer people, but we know that the ones who are not on our team, we either need to keep a little bit in that outer circle, or they're not, they're just not going to be the ones that are going to lift you up into the space of lightness. And that's where that's about really being honest. And I call it, it's the accountable authenticity. It's super, super, super important for this lifetime. And that's what Sonia called me out on. I was accountable for my weight. I had to be accountable for the fact my body was breaking down. I had to be accountable for the fact that I had a love less experience for 16 years, and that I had 3 kids that were, I was just 24/7 all over them, and I had to actually back off and allow them to grow into, their own contracts and have their own experiences, and really being accountable and authentic with all that is something that we can just practice. Those simple questions and simple steps every day where you're saying, is this my truth? And it's, I think it's really hard to hide when you start practicing that. It takes a little bit of time. It took me it could take up to a year or 2 years for you to get really micro-truthing with yourself. But once you do, it's hard to live any other way.
Yeah. Well, I've made a promise to myself that I might stretch the truth with someone else or soften it a little bit, but with me, I'm going to be brutally honest. And, oh, my goodness, once I started doing that, I start seeing things in a different light. But in my life, general overall, I'm looking to take that information now to the next level. Now, in your book, you talked about how huge life-changing events, and you had several in your life, kept, bombarding you. How did you get past the fear of the new change that needed to be made?
Well, it's baby steps. Baby steps is the first place to start. Most of the time, and we hear this, but I think what's hard is that, people say, oh, things you're afraid of are never as bad as you think. I mean, isn't that what people always say? And it seems like they dismiss it. And so I used to be, I was terrified to break into acting because I'd loved it. I knew that I had always loved it since a kid, but I'd had a message. My dad put in that message. He goes, acting is a horrible career. He said, I won't pay for an acting career, and you're not going to pursue it. And so I didn't. So at 40, I was told, wow, you could be an actor. And I thought, oh, my goodness, that sounded amazing. And at the same time, it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever thought, because actors are supposed to be thin. They're supposed to actually have some experience and probably talented. I didn't have any of that going on at the time. But what I decided to do, that was the dark side. I was like, there's dark Dianne and there was light Dianne, and the darkness was like, you're going to be horrible. No one's going to ever cast you. You're going to just fail miserably, and they're going to laugh. And then the other side was like, no, you love it. Let's give it a shot. So I'm not going to listen to the dark side. And so I did. Yeah, I took a baby step. Found the simplest and easiest path ever, and I went to community theater. I literally put a corset on so I would suck the middle.
Okay.
I put on a big skirt and boots because I thought, they might notice that I was pretty overweight at the time, but I thought, okay, you know what? That doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Sonia said I can do this, so I'm going to give it a try. And it was on my birthday. And I made myself go, and I just showed up, signed the little papers, got in line, and it was my turn, stood in front of this table full of people, and they said, sing me a song. And I'm thinking, I haven't sung in 20 years. Are you kidding me? And so they said, no, go ahead and sing us a song. So I sang the only song I knew, which is Wouldn't It Be Lovely? And it was by far the world's worst audition ever on the planet. I think I sounded like somebody was stepping on the tail of a cat, that's screeching and oh my gosh. So I sang the song. My hands start shaking so badly because I knew that this was probably horrible. I had to pin them behind my back, and I just finished. And so I started to kind of walk to the door, and I thought, okay, these people are thinking, get this woman out of here, And so I start to slink to the door, and the director kind of raised her hand and she said, oh, well, would you mind reading for us? And the play was Oliver, and I said, sure. She goes, will you read for Nancy? And I'm thinking, okay, that's the lead. I'm like, she wants me to read for the lead? Okay. So I took paper, I came back, threw on a weird Cockney accent, started just reading and having fun and playing really light and fun, did the whole scene with her, and they all perked up. This is 5 people who were heads were almost down on the table, started perking up, and they seemed a lot lighter and happier. And so I was kind of smiling, and I gave her back the paper, thanked me, escorted me out, now it's time to get out of here. And I left, and I just did this huge, it was snowing in Chicago, and I just did this huge happy dance because I showed up, I overcame the fear, I refused to pay attention to that dark side, and I just knew I didn't hold on to the outcome. I said, if this one does not work out, we don't get to control the outcome. So I'm like, if this does not work out, at least I showed up. So I kind of like gave myself a huge high five, And then I waited and, I waited a bunch of days. And on the fifth day, they called me. And they're like, hi, this is the director. And I said, oh, yeah. And they're like, we'd like to offer you a part. I'm like, oh, my gosh, here it is. What you think about, you bring about, right? So I was thinking, I want the part of Nancy. And she goes, well, we'd like to, yeah, right, And I'm like, okay, well, it was just a hope, And she said, we'd like to offer you the part of townsperson 1. And I'm like, absolutely, best day of my life. I'm like, thank you so much. Because that was the minute of time that I became an actor. And so it shifted after 20 years of sweeping that under the rug, just being courageous, not holding on to the outcome, knowing that if I had to show up again in a different situation, or probably a lot more prepared, that would have been fine with me. But I gave myself mega credit for just having the guts to show up.
And
that's
sometimes
how the whole thing starts.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes. It's amazing because sometimes we think ourselves out of situations instead of taking action. But, I noticed a little theme with you. What I am seeing is that you went to see Sonia Choquette on your birthday, and she gave you interesting news to really have you reboot your life, and then you did this audition on your birthday. So what is it with you and birthdays? For most people, the birthday is the solar return and the beginning of new things. So, folks, if you got a birthday coming up soon, start planning something good. And if it's far off, you got even more time to plan because Dianne is proof positive that if you think it will come in. I'd love for you to share your story around thinking in your new house and then getting rid of the guest, if you will, guest in quotes, in your old home so it could sell.
Oh, okay. That one was a great. You're talking about the ghost, the ghost.
Yeah, the ghost in the old home, and then you thinking in the new home. Yeah.
Well, the ghost in the old home was, and this wasn't something. I mean, I've always been open to concepts, but I wasn't really. And this was before any of the ghost hunt shows were on, or any all that stuff that's now kind of popular. And I had no idea that this was even possible. But in the old house, I had just like you see in some of those shows, I had the experience of, I brought my daughter home. We bought the house because I just had my child, and I thought, this is just going to be our perfect little nest. And she was a baby. She was just a tiny baby. And the first thing I remember is that I was home working because I was working a lot, even right after I had her. And my husband at the time had taken her out for a walk, and I heard these like clomping steps, like sounding like somebody was like stomping up these wooden stairs that we didn't even have carpet on it yet. And I stood up. I literally went out the hallway, and I'm like, "Are you guys back?" And then I heard nothing. I'm like, "Is someone there?" I mean, I did the whole thing like classic, And I stood up. I walk out. I walk all the way down the stairs to the first floor, and I'm like, okay, that was just weird. And then I kind of dismissed it because, I don't know what that's about. And I thought, okay, I'm imagining it. I went back up, and that was the start of a lot of really, really strange experiences in that house where we had lights go on and off by themselves. The TV would go off by itself. Toys would go on by themselves. It was a very we used to say it was an active house, and we used to say, because I found out it was the house of, I ended up doing a little research. I learned that a woman who had built the house died in the house, and that her body had sat there for several days before, I think it was or like several days before anyone found her. And we used to say, oh, she's she's talking to us again, and someone would be like, Mom, tell the ghost to stop. I mean, even my kids would say, tell the ghost to stop scaring us. So I'd be like, okay, look, you got to stop now. You're kind of freaking us all out. And one of the best stories from that is that I literally had just such a unique experience. We went out one day, and we were taking the kids out to a Renaissance fest. I had 2 little kids at that point, and I got this message as clear as if someone was speaking to me, and it says, go back to the house. You're going to burn down my house. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, did I just get a message that my house is going to burn down? And I said to my husband again at the time, I said, okay, I know this sounds really weird. We've just driven 50 minutes away from the house to go to this event. I have 2 kids sitting in the back. And I said, we have to turn around and go back home. And he pulls over, and he's like, what is there with you? I said, I know this sounds insane, but the house is going to burn down. And he looks at me like, what? Like, what is the matter with you? I'm like, I know, but if I hadn't heard this in my head, I would never have us do this. I'm so sorry, but we got to turn around. It's just too strong. Came back, and we walked in the house to another 50 minutes back, so now I'm 2 hours. I got, screaming kids in the car. Open it up, and the toaster oven had been somehow, something fell on it. It was like a book fell on it, and this is before they had the auto safeties, and it was burning the wood frame around the window, and It had started to char and smolder. And we all walked in, even my daughter was young at the time, but she recognized that the house was starting to burn. And we would have been gone all day. We would have been gone for like 10 hours. And so we came back, and I'm like, oh my God, the house was going to burn down. And literally, that was our, and from then on, we kind of had this like really appreciative relationship with that active house, where I was like, wow, somebody's watching out for us. And so it ended up being kind of positive, but it was, but we got used to things. We got used to very strange experiences, and just kind of just started always just going, there it goes again. So for us, it was a positive experience. So that was the ghost story. So I appreciate you letting me say that. I don't get to tell my ghost story very often.
Okay.
Well, I would have been on one. We could have done the TV shows, where they come in and check out the house with the meters and all that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But you took it a step further, because after you moved into your new house, overlooking the lake, you'd put that existing house on the market and it wasn't selling. And what did you do to help it sell?
Well,
remember that
was, yes, I do, and that was super fun. That was, I call it like the manifestation chemistry lab. That opportunity, we knew this, let's all remember 2008, that fun year, where we had the market, we were suspecting, people were suspecting the market was going to shift. I had another kind of just cognition and encounter with another person who said, the market's going to drop. I had this big expensive house. All of my clients were starting to dry up, and I was just picking up that my husband's business at the time was just about to get laid off. We all had that incredible experience of, oh my goodness, what the heck is about to happen to us in the economy? Well, I'm like, okay, it's time. I'm moving out. I'm going to sell the house. I'm going to give myself 90 days. I had to fix it, turn it around, and sell it before everybody figured out that the market was going to crash. And because when you have those kind of houses, of course, they're all based on, the perception of the value. And, of course, if we're going into a recession, we could have lost our shirts on the house. And I started having dreams that people were going to come in and literally take the house away from us. So I wrote down exactly what I wanted. I got very clear and specific. I manifested. I used to sit like inside the house and outside of the house. I used mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, everything I could do to get an exact amount within a period of time and to find the right partner in real estate who could help me sell it. And it's all part of this. It's like a whole chapter in the book about all these synchronistic things lined up. And I sold it for the exact weirdly, almost exactly the amount that I asked for. I had a person who was also very metaphysically minded, who happened to be my real estate agent. I had the entire thing was as if it was planned, as if it was like a play, like it was a show. And it was this roller coaster. And right when we got out, within 30 days, the market crashed. And so we were able to get our value out of it. We all were fine. We all had a little bit of money at the end. We separated our relationship and then proceeded to actually get divorced and moved on in the relationship, found a much more suitable place to live as a single mom, and the whole thing was played out just like you're in a chemistry lab. I always think like you have a Bunsen burner going, and you're going to add a little bit of the, I always remember like, if you do the Cu, it's going to turn green, and if you add this, it's going to turn black, and if you add this, it's going to, if it's a little ferrous, it's going to turn red. And so I was kind of like playing in this. I got really some real cool techniques that I'm able to kind of outline in the book on how to manifest exactly what I need, and I needed to do it. That was the important thing, because it would have been a very tough experience had someone come in and said, "Give me your keys. We're kicking you out of here." So we were lucky. We just kind of literally skated right through, and were able to get out and move on in a very healthy way. So we were so fortunate. It was scary and I'm also just really lucky that it all worked out.
Okay. We have a caller online. Let's take the call and see who's there. It's a 510 area code. Hi, you're on the air with Monique and Dianne.
Hi, Monique and Dianne. This is Heidi. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Oh, you're welcome, Heidi. How can we help you?
Hi, Heidi.
I had a little bit technical trouble to zoom in, but I heard enough, so I was brave enough to call. I have currently two professions. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I have currently two professions and don't feel comfortable in either. So I feel stuck and just, would, I think, do anything right now what would help me to move forward in whatever direction it might be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
in what areas do you feel stuck?
In which area? In my professions, in my business. In my profession.
Is that the primary area where you feel stuck?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have you had the opportunity, and this is something I'm going to offer just a little suggestion. One of the exercises that we do in some of our workshops, and I call it the I Love It inventory.
Uh-huh.
And if you can, when you have maybe some quiet time tonight, if you could go ahead and, just say, I love it when this happens. I love this. I love whatever it might be, whether it be the type of work, whether it be a type of situation, whether it be something that you have a passion about, whether you get into something, and a lot of it goes really back to when we're young. Very often we get clues when we're young in childhood, and really write down everything that you love about what you're currently doing, if there is anything there, and then everything that you would absolutely love to do. But you have to be able to say that word truthfully and to yourself. So can you maybe just kind of as an example, is what is it that you would absolutely, what part of this do you love, or what part of something in the future would you absolutely love to do?
Okay, I have to do some soul searching, I guess. But thank you so much. I will do this, and hopefully it brings me where I need to be.
Yeah, well, I think, Heidi, that what Dianne is saying is that there are certain questions that we need to ask each other. And folks, before we went on air, she asked me a couple of questions, and I was like, So it's really important that we sit down and take a moment to know who we are, so that we can know what we need to release and know what we need to keep. Now, you mentioned that the work aspect of your life was out of sync. Is the rest of your life in balance?
Not either, I have to admit, but the business part seems to be more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems more in the foreground than the other stuff. The private, it's basically not existent. Maybe I have to work on that first in order to go to the next step in business. So I really like the part where you said, what would self-love mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought self-love would mean to me right now going dancing, because I just love to dance, so I will do this weekend.
And you know what?
Okay.
I just want to throw this out. I can hear in your voice, right when you said that word, we can hear it. We can all hear it. Everybody can hear it. In your energy shifted right when you said dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of shift, whenever you can feel that lift, that uplifting feeling, and we talk about what you love to do and really getting a little more in touch with your passion, that little lift is the first step. Because after you lift up a little bit and you go dancing this weekend, you're going to feel a little lighter, and then you can come really clean. And just a suggestion, these 14 rules are very, very helpful. They are a book, but, for example, when you are speaking your piece, which is one of the rules,
Mm-hmm.
when you're speaking your piece, you're actually talking from your authentic self. And that is usually where people need to start, because that will get you that little bit of clarity. And call yourself out. If it's not, you said non-existent. I heard you say that. Well, non-existent isn't really what you want. I'm sure you want something that's rich and full and feels awesome. So to move from that, really ask yourself, what would it feel like if I had a personal life that felt, yummy, good, fulfilling, satisfying? I felt that holding and that hug, that tremendous support. And ask yourself what that looked like, so at least you can start to put yourself in that little higher, lighter, happier space. And that will really help you at least the very first steps, and then you get to recraft all this based on your own answers.
Great.
Okay.
It definitely gives me something to work on. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Heidi, for calling in. And, stay in touch and let us know how things unfold for you.
Thank you so much, Monique.
Okay.
And thank you, Dianne.
Oh, thank you for calling.
Okay. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I'm thankful that Heidi called, and she's a little anxious to get off the phone there, but it's great that she called in and was willing to address. And sometimes that is, I think, Dianne, the first step for someone moving forward. Now, I've got about 30 seconds left, girl, so tell people how they can get your book, some last moments you'd like to share with our audience.
Absolutely. The book is called The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now, and it is on Amazon. It's on barnesandnoble.com, and one of the things that I do tour, and so my website is liveyoureverything.com, and we have life reboot workshops where we can really kind of dive in and talk a little bit more about what Heidi just brought up, some of the real authentic living, who you are, getting clear, get going, and then get happy. So I just want to remind everyone that your future is lined with infinite possibilities, and the middle years can be absolutely the greatest time of your entire life. That is one thing that I hope we create an entire movement of life rebooters, so everybody is just deliriously happy with their life and have a fantastic time.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you very much for being the guest. Folks, go get the book. If you're struggling at all and looking for something new because what you're doing is not working, definitely pick up this book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. It's available everywhere. Go get it. Gift yourself with some information that's going to enrich yourself. Dianne, thank you so much. I'll be in touch with you soon.
Okay, thanks, Monique.
Okay, thank you. And for the audience, thank you for being with me. And we will connect again next week. And